Welcome to the San Diego Onshape users group. We are located in San Diego, surprisingly. Let's just go over some basic stuff, 101 type stuff. If you're interested in this users group, if you sign up for it, all you have to do is just type your email address in. We don't sell anything anymore, so you're not going to get spammed with a bunch of sales stuff. But it will help because we do send out an email reminder as to the users group. So go ahead, put your email in here. If you do exist, we know that. We're not going to start sending you two emails, so you don't have to worry about us duplicating your email address. And then we have John McCleary. Anybody that's on the forum knows John. He's really good at Onshape, and I've asked him to join us tonight.
Okay, so if you don't know me, my name's John McCleary. You can always get up with me on the forum. My handle's down there. Also, if you ever want to chat, my Discord handle is also down there. My background, I'm a mechanical designer. I've been working for about 15 years at my company. 10 years of that has been with Parametric Modeling and SolidWorks. So I got a little bit of background with 3D and that. And when I came to Onshape, my struggle was trying to figure out how to set everything up and make it work as seamless as it was when we were using SolidWorks. So a few things I want to go over, I don't know if we'll get through the whole thing, is basically how I set things up. What I've done on my end versus what I've done on the company end, how I lay out a project, and how I go about parametric modeling, etc. First of all, company variables. This is a pro level thing, but if you do have access to company variables or company at all, this helps you set up some parameters that work with your detail drawings. So in my case, we always need to show the mass, we need to show the stock size, what sheet it's on, what item number it is, a specific quantity, etc. And we've created some custom feature scripts to fill in these properties right off the Part Studio. So say, for example, in SolidWorks, to get a stock size for sheet metal, it was a complicated, flat pattern and let's say a bounding box and then 3 dimensions to that, and then those properties are set. Somebody helps me out on the forum. I'm Bartlett. Little boy genius there. He came up with a way to automatically detect my stock sizes, etc. And I'll show you how that works. So basically, when I create a part, I want to be able to determine what stock it is just by a couple clicks once this opens. Sorry, I should have had this open before I started. So basically, it creates a feature, and it'll automatically set the part to read what that part is and set that so it shows up on the bill of materials. So it determines whether it's just a flat disc or if I wanted to, have it as a piece of square tubing or something. Set nice. Whether it's metric or inches. Yeah, he did a great job with this. I asked him one simple question. He wrote the whole thing.
That's great.
And this one is not public only because of the custom features. You'd have to set those up manually, so it won't be much use for many people. But if I could make it public and you guys could set that up if you like. Another one that we use, it's very similar, is going to be the mass properties. Unlike the Onshape properties, I also need to put the weight into the part, which is something you can't currently do. So again, this will set up my BOM to automatically tell me what material it is and give me a mass. And again, and Bartley helped me out with this one also.
I thought that was already available.
There is a set material, but it won't put it to a property of the part, and that's basically what this will do. So if I edit properties,
Oh,
it'll actually set the mass into a custom property. And another thing I've done recently is I've updated that to take a variable. So now you just use plain text. And as long as that exists somewhere in here, in your little pre-list, see, this would be a CSV file on Onshape. I'm probably one of these days I'll update that to be this. So now I can have a configuration based off a feature script, which is our biggest product, which is a spiral chute. And I can say, okay, this is a stainless steel version. There was really no way to configure that the way I needed to from a feature script, which is basically a set of variables for me. So now I can have a variable that just says, okay, it's aluminum, and it'll go through every part. Okay, if stainless steel, that means these 10 parts need to be stainless, and those ones still need to be hot roll. And I can work my way through that way, and just by changing a text field.
yeah, if you're going to bring that in, bring it as JSON. It's very similar, but you'll get more intelligence out of it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really green when it comes to feature script. A lot of these were kind of a lot helped.
Just call me. I'll help you out.
And one more I want to show off real quick is sheet metal. So I do a lot with sheet metal. And one thing that we don't have is a sheet metal table. So it was very simple, just a quick enum of a few of your current stock sizes, what size it really is in decimal, and what bend radius you typically use for that. So the benefit of this would be to I can create a feature in a tree, and just by changing this feature, it'll change the thickness and the bend table. And because it's a feature in a tree, I just put it on the top. Everything I do sheet metal from now on is going to be 18 gauge. And if I want to create another one, I could just drop one in, and I can just drag them up or down and change thicknesses all around without having to edit.
That's really cool.
How's it doing that? I don't know what to do. So is it we have a default bend radius? Is that how he's taking advantage of it?
I take advantage of it because we only have like 2 sets of dies.
Yeah.
We got a big die and a small die. But so basically I'm just spitting out variables. So hashtag thickness, hashtag bend radius. So all that does, the most useful feature I've ever found is...
Well, you put in, when you create a sheet metal feature, you're putting variables in the fields is what you're doing.
Yes, I'm just throwing variables in the context. Yeah.
Got it.
So now I don't have to use a custom sheet metal. I can use the default Onshape tools. Yeah, my favorite feature script is set variable. That is probably the most powerful thing I've ever used, because most people don't want to model inside feature script. They just want to spit out a few variables, right? So if you learn anything about it, I'd say at least learn that much, because that helps out a lot. So what would take me a couple hours to go through, sometimes it takes a whole day to just do these 3 things in SolidWorks at the end of a project. Especially most of our stuff is sheet metal. There's a lot of hassle involved with this, whereas this is just, okay, I just drop a feature in a tree and done.
Hey, we've never gone over feature script. Onshape is totally customizable, and that's what he's showing. That's a great.
And you don't have to dig too deep either. Those 3 things do 90% of what I need.
Wow.
So now let's talk about our library. So I don't have much in our library, but one thing I do have is something probably people are familiar with, is a block. They don't exist in Onshape yet, but what I've actually done is created a surface, or a composite part, I say, of surfaces, where I insert this view into a new drawing, and it essentially just acts like a block. Let me create a drawing real quick so you can see what I'm getting at. So if you have any special blocks that you need to float around, or you don't want them on every template, like these are permanent. But in this case, I'm going to want just an approval stamp before we send it out to the customer. It would let me actually select it. So then it just works like a normal block, like you would be familiar with. Another thing we do is our library we set up is just some common parts that we use. We don't have many on the Onshape library yet, but because most of what I do doesn't really require many purchase parts in Onshape. As you can see, what we've done was create a folder of common parts and just made this exposed to everybody. A little bit over our structure. I set the company file to just be a folder, and that's shared with everybody in our company. So the shop can have view-only access. The office gets to edit.
John, do you guys run enterprise?
No,
Okay.
we run pro. We have 3 pro seats. Everybody else is free.
Okay.
So they're just view-only.
I like the way you've set this up.
So then we have a couple standard products. I just put those in their itemized folders because folder structure really doesn't hurt in Onshape. I can move these around. I can rename files.
Can't
and
break
SolidWorks, yeah, it would break everything if you decided, oh, I doesn't want the 0 in front of the 3 anymore. Or in our case now, they just changed the whole folder structure. Now we got a whole set of jobs that are in warranties. Like, broke everything. So it doesn't matter how you name things, but keeping things organized helps. And inside each one, separate them by whether it's being quoted right now, whether or not we're currently modeling it, and whether or not it's released to the shop. See, I don't use release management. It's kind of over my head, and everything we do is very on the fly. We design until it's out the door on Rev 1. We never really want to deal with revisions. We don't want to release new prints and levels. We'll just say, hey, this hole didn't line up. All right, I fixed it in the model. Go grind it, you know?
Yeah, you make one.
Yeah, you make one, and you probably never make that again, or you might make 10 more next week, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so then when that's done, I just move into archives, and it's there when I need it. Like I said, you can move things around to your heart's content because it's not going to break anything. I think that's a very handy feature. All right. People ask a lot, I've seen on the forum, not a lot, but you know, what kind of hardware do you use? Like, what kind of mouse you use? I see a lot of people always ask, or trying to push for the just a 3-button mouse, which is probably fine for most people, but for my money, this is a $30 mouse that'll give you 24 buttons just on your thumb, which is very handy if you are a keyboard shortcut enthusiast. Just not even in just Onshape, just in Windows or in general. You know, you throw things like Control Shift in there, and you get your modifier keys, delete, enter, you know, Control Tab. You know, Control Tab is just a button on my mouse, and I can flip through, right? You know, open up a directory, you open up a couple directories, Alt F4, close directories. These are just buttons on the mouse, you know. You know, copy, paste, you know, maybe. Maybe. Anyway. And so yeah, for my money, you can't get much better than that. It's $30. And this one mouse has probably lasted me about 4 or 5 years, which is longer than any other $90 mouse I've ever had.
Would you recommend that mouse?
Well, hands down. I've actually bought a few for work and passed them out. If people don't use them for more than just a regular mouse, eventually I swap them out for a regular mouse. But there are some people who it's a learning curve. you know, being a video gamer, you know, I'm used to controllers and stuff, so it's nothing for me. But some people, it's a little overwhelming having all that on your thumb. But if you really want to get hardcore into anything, I'd definitely try this out. It's not that big of a loss if you don't like it. So as far as my folder structure, you'll notice that I actually have a company tab up here, which is set up identical to how I set up my folder structure in Onshape. So that will actually match everything we see here. So if I need to get to the current InDesign shoots, I just go here, and there I'm there, right? So using this interface of bookmarks, because remember, this is a website. It's something I tend to forget pretty often, and these little reminders show off how much power you actually get for such a simple app. Heck, where did it go? I think I closed my presentation.
Was that a button on your mouse?
That was probably a button on my mouse. Moving too fast. Now where did... Yeah, I just got a new computer, so it's not set up the way I want. This thing is in the way. I'll take the back door to get to my Google Drive here. Trying to go fast. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
If I'm going too fast for you, just slow me down. Gosh. All right, so yeah, I've already gone over my folder structure. So now inside of a project, I try to treat every document as a project. A lot of people are kind of against that. They prefer to go the multi-document method, which is one part or two parts per document, and then you have one master document that you bring everything in as a version. I like to work alive. I like if I make a change here, I don't want to have to go chase that down.
Yeah.
Updating and making sure my in contexts are all ready and up to date.
But John, you make one part. I mean, you don't need version control. Right?
Well, I make one part or one assembly, but it might have like 100 parts in it.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah. You don't have to control what you shipped last week.
Sometimes, not very often. Luckily we do not get that much warranty callback work. So as far as a drawing structure, I'll show you kind of how I go about it. I guess I'll use this for an example. It's kind of a poor example because this was more of a CAD practice when I was starting Onshape. Grab the nearest object by your desk and start going at it. So, but I tried to follow the same practices I try to keep with at work, so I can figure out how deep do I go into the rabbit hole before I go and create a new part studio. So what I've been finding is the fewer the better. I try to keep at least 4 parts at most if I can get away with it. In this case, like I'm up to 7, right? Or 10. But after that, you're starting to slow everything down. See, I got 85 features. It's going pretty fast for me, but maybe on the public document, it's probably not as fast, right? So if it is related to a detail, like this is like the base part, correct? This needs to follow this contour. So these kind of things kind of make sense to be together. So that's kind of how I go about this. And if I did this again, I would probably not have put these here. These I would have isolated out in their own separate environment. Very similar to how Kevin was doing it. I think he was spot on in how he took everything out into small pieces and then brought them all together and Boolean together, and I think that's about the best way you could ever do it here. I prefer derive over in context in that same respect because, again, it's alive. If I want to change where this is, it's going to change, or the change the thickness of this or the depth of this is going to change how wide this piece is, correct? And then from there, I try to throw everything into little assemblies. So even though this is just 2 pieces and a nut, yeah, it's still assembly to me because I still want these to be movable for when I go to the master assembly. I want to be able to have those adjustable and not locked in and crashing through things. So most of this was just kind of, like I say, getting my feet wet with Onshape. I've got a little bit of everything, I think, in this. I practiced with lofts, feature script to get the fretboard positions, which, yes, you should definitely take advantage of many feature scripts that just do singular purpose things. Like in this case, I'm just dividing by 17.81, creating a variable on the fly, taking that value, subtracting it from the master, and then looping that through 23 times. So now I get a variable, and I don't have to worry about taking out my calculator and going, okay, that one's this divided by that minus this. Okay, next, type it all again from scratch. So just little mini feature scripts help out a lot. Just being able to take a photograph of something and just trace over it. It's something you can do in SolidWorks, but I didn't actually find that out till later. There's a lot of features are kind of buried, whereas everything's kind of in your face. There's not too cumbersome. There's a button, you know, within one click of a menu. SolidWorks is probably buried 3 layers deep, you know. See, another example of that would have been if I can find it. Yeah, the main body itself. I basically just traced the most ortho photograph I could because I didn't want to obviously measure all this, correct? As far as in context goes, it has its place. This is one of the few times I use in context because I just wanted to get the strings and I wanted them to follow wherever I put the bridge nuts and wherever I had the nut up here. I want them to wrap around and, you know, just overall just look nice. This is more of an art project, right? But when you need to edit something and it's not that critical, that's where I think in context kind of comes in handy. It's something that doesn't need to update all the time. Otherwise, I 100% go for a derive. Global variables, that's something a lot of people always talk about. I kind of threw this out there a bunch of times. There's really not much that it takes to create a global variable. Again, it's a miniature feature script, but it's not too hard to do. Basically create a new one, hit new feature. You know, it's the only code you'll need to know is not that. That variable. Context is always context. Give it a name. This will be the name that shows up with a little hashtag. Can't type today. Give it a value. It doesn't matter what the value is. It could be text, it could be number, it could be a number with units. Be whatever you want. Hit commit. And then from then on, if I go to a part studio, it's just a button over here. We'll will bring up whatever feature scripts are in this document. So if I plop that in, anything I have in there will also be in this drawing.
Hey, John or Bill, if I know nothing about feature scripts, where would be a good place to kind of learn a little bit, and what would be like a really simple first project to like, I want to learn about feature script and start utilizing it in my designs?
The sources on the Onshape Learning Center are okay.
Yeah.
My best thing was actually just looking at other people's, getting help, asking on the forum. There is really no good place to,
Hey.
no good.
Hey, John, can you click on the IDE, the development for feature script, and just show them that?
Where's
Just
that?
the curly braces with the check mark.
Oh, yes, this. Yeah.
That's kind of where you start, right in here. And then you can get to the IDE. Where do you program? You know what? We need to do, there you go. They kind of build themselves, wouldn't you say, John?
No.
Not everything.
No?
You got to know. Listen, feature script.
It's
You
a monster.
have to be a developer. You have to have a little bit of developing expertise. It is not for the. John is being very conservative in his skill set, just being able to do what he's doing. So it requires a bit of programming expertise. No doubt about it.
Right.
We'll go over feature script and a user
The help
script.
though, you don't like the documentation. I would recommend popping that open because it has a couple projects and shows you how to do the get this, shows you how to get started and shows you how to build a couple projects here. And so this is the place to start. I just don't know if it's going to get you where you need to be.
No, yeah. I mean, that'll get you started, but as soon as I tried to do any modeling with feature script, it fell right off the rail, like within the first sketch. I still don't know how to create a sketch, but go to standard library documentation right here, and I probably cruised through this more than anything. It's like, how does this work? Dig into it. Okay, that's about the best you can really. That's the best documentation I could find. But there's really no good tutorial, no definitive lesson plan.
There's a lot of people that will help you write feature script. That's the good news.
Yeah, go to the forum.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I get most of my help from.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, if you're going to learn anything, learn that.
Variable.
That is.
So how do you change the value of that then? See, I need to even understand this.
Oh, so the value is right here. So
no, but I mean, so you use this variable in your models. You build a bunch of models, and you go back into this code to change the value.
Right. So if I had like 6 or 7 part studios open, right?
Yeah.
And just drop this in, and then create a sketch. Just throw it out. That variable will show up right there, right?
Yeah.
So if that's why I consider a global variable, because I can dump this feature anywhere I want.
Oh, it is a global variable because it's in a feature script that you're moving around.
Right.
Clever. Okay.
Yeah, so the best example of that.
It expands it goes through all your documents everywhere. It's an uncontrolled global variable.
Oh, no, so it's
it's a pandemic.
Ready to update everything. Go.
Yeah. So the best example of that, I can't show you too much in here because it's proprietary, but what I can show you is the global variable. So this is what I've done. It's not as complex as it looks off the bat. So I got a CSV file. This is brand new, but basically what I did before was just a whole bunch of set variables, and I set all the different sizes, right? So when I change, like I say, I was telling you earlier, I want to change something to galvanized steel versus stainless steel. All I got to do is change this. If it says stainless, it's going to set all the parts that I need to be stainless to stainless. But this is all of the code that you really needed for a CSV file. And now it's just an Excel file that we actually pull in from the quote sheet, which actually we quote for the customer. I just drag and drop a file in here or update this CSV.
Now I know why you're using CSV. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and so then that bend table that I showed you earlier is actually imported in here also. So now I can take advantage of my bend table and get those thicknesses and bend radiuses. So if we get a new die, this is actually up to date. So
For global variables, there's another approach too. Just throwing it in there, out there, using configurations. You can use configurations, and then you can use assembly configurations to control the part configurations. And by definition, that's a global variable in a sense. So
yeah,
it's another approach to it.
Yeah, this is nice if you want to work just in the Part Studio. It hurts for me for what we do is because now I need to know every parameter I typed in for the released product. You know, was it okay if I have 100 variables here, which, you know, you saw how long my list was. That's hard to keep track
I'll
of
humbly
that,
say
you
we're
know?
going to have to fix this in the product so that you don't have to write feature script to do this. So it's a great way to get something done now, but you shouldn't have to do that.
No, it is a workaround, but it's a very handy workaround. I actually
For
end
sure.
up using it in most things, even almost all the things I've done for work. Just because I like having that one place to input. You know, conveyor width. Okay, my conveyor effective width is 20 inches. Now all my parts, including my rollers, can just come off of one variable without having to derive and all this, because that will work faster than a derive.
Yeah. Hey,
But
John, do
yes.
you have your Rubik's Cube?
Yes, it's not going to animate because it's going to take 5 minutes to animate. But
Oh, okay.
um,
Can you go over how you built it?
sure. So it was pretty simple blocks for this. I wasn't trying to go for art in this case. And this is also before colored faces. So the workaround is
Right. I
an
know.
assembly, a separate assembly with the face glued to it. From there, we have some more assemblies somewhere. That actually have I don't know where they went. It's been a while since I dug into this. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. We got invisible parts basically driving a datum point and mates that give it the degrees of freedom that I want and mates that I'm able to control using relations. So this whole thing started from one of the models kind of like this, where you have something very simple like a relation. A linear thing is going to rotate with a rack and pinion, and you can have as many as you want. So I kind of figured, well, what if I had just a curvy surface that I moved from left to right and made this face tangent to that? So as that moved left to right in time, this will, you know, make small adjustments. Well, it's kind of where this all started from. So I'll say, how many points do I need to control? And end up creating these little paths. So every part is going to actually follow this path, and that will be the x-axis of the white, red, green piece. This will be the y-axis of the white, red, green piece. And then I create this little pointer, which actually is what I make tangent to that little point. Combine them all together. And then you get this sloppy mess. So as this whole thing goes from right to left or left to right, this stays fixed. These are sliders on the point of this. It's called the, you know, the play finger. So they'll slide up and down, and they're always relative to this. As this goes this way,
I'm
Just
almost
follow the
everybody.
path.
I'm pretty sure everybody would agree with me when I say that FeatureScript is less complicated than this.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you can figure it out if you just felt like looking at it for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, this took a good month to draw all of these curves. And that's all it was. The solving of it, the understanding of it was done within the first one. As I now it's just repetitive. So I've tried to improve on that. So the next iteration is actually right here. I haven't gotten very far with it. But what I'm trying to do is make it more user friendly. Because to sketch every curve and set the tangency of everything, and then whoops, it accidentally meant I accidentally constrained it horizontally to the one before it, and it just became a nightmare to code. So in this case, I just have a sketch, call it easing functions. If anybody's done any animation in code, you probably know what a easing function is, right? It's where you have a spline, which over time is going to determine, what position or what value you have. So you can see this is a very steep curve. It's going to be a really fast, jerky motion, but then smooth off at the end. So then we can create a part studio, or it's a part studio with a bunch of configurations in it. I'm going to break these off eventually, so this is only the yellow, because when I open this config menu, you're going to say, what the heck is he doing? So basically, I can export this off to Google Sheets, was my original idea. And then I can just go through, okay, the XY axis, that's going to be, that's going to be normally down. Swap axis, that's something different, you don't have to worry about. But basically, up or down is all I really needed to know. So let me change this so you can see what's going on. So instead of sketching every single curve explicitly, I can just say, okay, I want that to go up, then I want it to go, down sharply. And you can just kind of do it off, on the fly. So I think that was, the next level of improvement for that, for making an animation for anything. Because until we get real animations and real timelines, this is really the only option for complex intermittent movement. It just takes a ton of setup. But I'm trying to simplify that. Once I get that, I'm actually going to put this public. This one's currently public, if you ever want to look at it. Most of the stuff I do is public if I'm going to put it on the forum.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so the global feature script. Yeah, we talked about that. It's like you said, yeah, the one feature script to rule them all. So this isn't actually the one to rule them all. It's a new feature script in every document. Now you could use that and derive that into another document, add it to your toolbar. But I prefer to just kind of keep those isolated for the project. Yeah, I think I've kind of gone over Part Studios and weldments. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's what it means to be a parametric modeler. I want to make one input, and I want it to change the whole design if it's needed. If I change from metric to English, which happens a lot where I work, General Motors wants metric. Oh, I want the same product, but it's going to Ford this time. Okay, they want English. So I want to be able to change it once. I want to change it, like I say, from stainless steel to mild steel. Just one time. Now I have to go through 100 parts. And with small bits of code from FeatureScript, you can get away with that fairly simply. It looked pretty overwhelming from that spiral shoot one, but it's really just that one line of code which says set variable. Derive versus in context, I beat that to death a little bit. Always derive unless it's something you don't want to change. That was kind of the problem in SolidWorks days, is if you go in context, you not only slowed everything down, now you got to keep track of this link. There are no keeping track of links in Onshape. It's you link it to that document, it's permanent. It's not going anywhere. No matter what you rename it, you can rename it while somebody's using it. It's still going to work just fine. Local variables versus global variables. Yeah. Local variables you can actually use to override global variables also. So let's say I had the effective width of a conveyor and I wanted that to set my leg width for my cross members, the cross members of the frame for the conveyor frame, the conveyor that's longer than it, that's next to it, that'd be a whole nother model, let's say. I can change that once, but this one, I just want this one to taper off and be narrower on one end, so it's kind of like a tapered conveyor. Okay, I can just override it and change it there just by putting a local variable anywhere in the tree. I think that's pretty much all I got for you guys.
That's great.
I'm sorry if I kind of went too fast, but I've tried to shorten as much as I could, because when I practiced with this, it took a couple hours of rambling before I realized, oh God, it's it's too long. So,
Hey, John, how long have you been using Onshape?
I think it's been 2.5, 3 years.
Wow. Well, you've mastered it. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Something else that I did want to go over that's pretty exciting. This is something that I asked for 2 years ago. And I like writing the back-end system. And there's something called WebGL, and I want to go over that and what does that mean. WebGL is the graphics language, and it's basically what allows us to spin things around on the internet. And I want to go over the history of it because they've just now introduced something. It's called GLTF, and that's just a graphics transfer language. I want to go over the history of this stuff because I'm excited about it, and I think that we're going to really see a big change in computing. The history behind graphics and graphics language all started with Silicon Graphics. We used to sell Silicon Graphics. That's how long we've been doing this. We used to run Pro-E on Silicon Graphics computers. That's how long it's been. And they had the best graphics in the industry. There was nobody else that can compete against them. They were pressured by the industry to standardize because everybody was standardizing code back in those days. So they decided, okay, well, we'll standardize the graphics language that we use. And they called it OpenGL. And that basically introduced a standardization of being able for computers, programs to talk to the graphics accelerator directly. Windows NT adopted OpenGL. That was a big deal for their graphics language. They also introduced TCP/IP back in those days. Otherwise, we would be using NetBEUI right now in Windows. So they really did revolutionize. Windows NT basically killed all of the workstations out there in the marketplace. OpenGL was adopted by SolidWorks, and that basically is what's running a lot of the graphics engines inside of Windows. Silicon Graphics went out of business, and what was left behind is OpenGL. So OpenGL is a legacy from Silicon Graphics. It's very high-speed graphics. There's a company called the Kronos Group. Since Silicon Graphics went out of business, somebody had to take over. So there's a Kronos Group, and they've been developing OpenGL and releasing it for the last 20 years. And they introduced something called WebGL. WebGL is very close to OpenGL, except for it runs on the cloud. And it really is just a JavaScript implementation of OpenGL. The nice thing about WebGL is it runs on all the phones, all the tablets, and all of the browsers that are out there. The exciting thing about WebGL is it's the most comprehensive adoption ever. So if you have graphics, right, Onshape uses WebGL. That's what allows us to spin the model around. And you can see it on your phones, and you can use it on your tablets and all the browsers. And the significance of this is that I can write it once and I can deploy it everywhere. And this is something that's kind of brand new, because we've had these silos of technology that people couldn't use anymore. A good example is eDrawings. You can't run that anywhere. Can't run it in a browser. 3D PDF, that's another proprietary standard. But what's going to happen in the cloud once we start adopting it is that WebGL is the 3D standard, and everybody's going to start using it more and more. So this is the Kronos group. You may hear about them. They're totally in control of the OpenGL standard that Windows uses, but they've also implemented WebGL, so they're also in control of that. So computer graphics language is being done by a group called the Kronos group. So let's talk a little bit more about WebGL. If you're a developer and if you want to spin things around on your screen, you're probably going to end up using something called 3JS. It's a library. A lot of people use it. And what it does is WebGL is pretty complicated. 3JS sits on top of WebGL, and it allows you to make calls, and it gives you the ability to spin things around fairly easily. I've been playing around with it. I've got things that spin around on 3JS. There's a problem with 3JS, and that is when you load it in, it takes a long time to load. It's not modular. There's another problem with 3JS. A lot of the existing WebGL libraries out there, they use their own data representations. There's a new one that's coming up called StackGL, and it's based on the NPM modularity paradigm, meaning that you can load up StackGL, and then you can just load in what you need, the various modules that you're going to be working with. The other nice thing about StackGL is that all the data is in a JavaScript array. So all your manipulations, a lot of people will put the array inside of an object, and it's just very difficult writing programs for it because you got to learn their data structures. What got introduced just a few months ago is this GLTF translator, and Onshape basically released their GLTF translating format. It's now revision 2. And what's really surprising is that when I was researching this a couple of years ago, there was no talk about any of this stuff. How do you get the information out of a cloud app, and how do you spin it around on top of the screen? GLTF is not a file because there are no files on the cloud. So that's the reason why they call it a transfer format. And the amazing thing when I was researching GLTF recently is that everybody's on board. So everybody that's doing it, Microsoft now has Babylon, and it's all written with GLTF. You're going to see GLTF. It's going to be a standardized transfer language that people are going to be utilizing. Let me show it to you. So a lot of people are adopting GLTF translators, and this guy did. You can go to his website. You can download you can export a GLTF from Onshape. And you can load it in. So this is a Onshape model, and this is a mesh. So not only does it bring the model, there's the model. This is directly out of Onshape. Okay, so you can export it and then you can just import it in. Now, this particular viewer is still using 3JS as its engine. And I think what we're going to find out is that a lot of people are going to start creating their own GLT. I'm going to start creating my own GLTF, and I'm going to tie it into my website. Okay, so here's the deal, right? You want to go to a website and you want your model to be spinning around on your website. This is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be translating the information out of Onshape, and then that will allow you to put it onto your website. I think that's pretty exciting because right now, most websites, it's just a flat picture. I want more than that. I want to be able to spin my model around. When somebody comes to my website, I want to be able to spin it around. I think it's just going to introduce a whole new way, a whole new experience. And it's coming, and it's coming really fast. So we're all going to start seeing more in the way of WebGL.
Let me share my screen. I can show you a real practical example of this if you want.
Go for it, Joe.
All right, you see my screen?
Got it.
So this is a company called GripShape. You guys can all go there, gripshape.com. But this is using WebGL/GLTF. They're very, very similar, but it's taking Onshape data, put it in that format, and then with just a little bit of work. So what they've done is they just basically created a front end for Onshape. So that's Onshape. That just talked to Onshape and got a new design. And this company they built a business off this. They want to sell these grippers. I used to call these effectors, but they call them grippers. But it's, if you want to move, if you have a robotic arm and an assembly line and you need to pick this part up and move it to a different location, this would be the gripper that grips it. And it's custom for the shape of the part that you're moving. And it's just cool because it's taking the technology that Bill's talking about, and it's also taking a little bit of the API of Onshape. And every time you do something, it basically just goes back and it just says, okay, tell Onshape to give me that configuration. This is all based on the Onshape configurations. And they've got some caching built in to make it faster, slower, and just really slick, right? So
yeah, where's this going to go, Joe? I mean, now we have a rule-based engine as a table inside of a part studio. I mean, you can make it do anything. You can configure it to do anything.
Yeah, if you tried to do this with SolidWorks, these kinds of things have existed for a long time, but you would buy 2 or 3 pieces of software and probably in a lot of work to glue it all together in order to go from your CAD model to a marketing or a sales website. And if you tried to update the model in your CAD model, it would not update. Here, if I open this model in Onshape and make a change, this website site will change, right?
Yeah.
It's a direct link to the actual CAD data, which is kind of cool.
And the other problem that a lot of those companies have is finding programmers that can do this. But with Onshape, if you can make a configuration, you can basically drive a website now.
These are all those rules. The main work here was the rules, right? Building the Onshape models with all the configurations, and then the rules for if then that, and you got to know your product line really well. But yep, that's all I wanted to show. Just since you were talking about that, I thought it might be interesting. Hey guys, how are you? So my role at Onshape is developer relations. So I deal with just a wide variety of things. People that are building apps for the App Store, so that falls under my responsibility and all that's there. And then certainly other use cases where people want to do stuff with our product, like GripShape was one. And if John wanted to turn his Rubik's Cube into a product, he'd talk to me. Probably we could sell it, but actually, Kevin, what I thought I'd talk about is the App Store a little bit. Figured that, I think that might just be a good focal point, and the App Store is the API, right? So everything, by definition, I thought it would be good to walk you through what the App Store is, what you can do, and everybody in the App Store use the Onshape API, right? So those are all demonstrations of what you can do with that. So let me share my screen. How many people have been to the App Store?
Yep.
Checks it out.
Or I probably should have said how many people haven't been to the App Store. So, just so you understand, what Onshape is, and you guys are seeing me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. I don't do full screen because I suck at Mac and full screen. It's still 5 years later, I'm still struggling with it. We have, we're very focused. We always have been at Onshape with solid, with parts assemblies, drawings, and feature script, which is an extension, and really data management. When you look at the workflow and release management, it's all that. Basically, that's the core of Onshape. But of course, you've got to do a lot of other things. You've got to do analysis. You need rendering. You might have to talk to a PLM system. CAM for subtractive manufacturing, additive manufacturing. The CAD is the focal point, but everything all around it, the whole ecosystem are things we all need to do, because CAD is just a starting point, really. So there is, we decided to do something different in this market. It's not really that different anywhere else. It's an app store, and this is an app store that you just click on the button, you check it out. If you want to find out what a particular app does, you click on it and get a little bit better, view of it. Typically, there's going to be some thumbnails that you can scroll through. There may or may not be reviews of what a particular app has done. And then, depending on the type of app that it is, you can, generally speaking, with one button, you subscribe to it. Most applications will have a free option, and you can do that, or you can even do, you can change from free, or you can purchase right out. And this will, when you do actually purchase something, it actually is a purchase that's built into Onshape. So it is very much like Apple, and that's the point. From a user's perspective, right? On your phone, you find an app that you want, you hit a button, and you subscribe to subscribe to that app, and that's exactly the way this works. Or Google, take your pick on which product or which app stores you prefer to reference. Anybody, it is an open ecosystem, so anybody, if I go all and just look at everything that's here, in fact, I should use my Firefox, whatever that is, because you don't want to see my view because I'm an administrator, so you're going to see thousands of apps it's a big mess. But this is the view you get as a non-administrator in the App Store. And there's a lot of stuff in here. There's, generally speaking, probably 70 or so apps if I count them up. I can't even keep track. Some will come and some will go. It is truly a marketplace in that respect, right? That is something that happens. You can consider that a strength or a weakness. But generally speaking, over here on the left side, this is kind of the first thing you should check out is, just making sense of all this. Maybe you're interested in simulation. And, what's really cool is these are all products that will work with Onshape, and there's a few things here that are going on. All right. There's color coding over here on the top, right? There's 3 colors. There's light blue, there's yellow, and there's dark blue. And what those really denote is there's the old, I'm gonna just call it old school desktop applications, right? If we take a look at SimWise, really like this app, but I really like what the app does, I should say. But it is a Windows product. It only runs on Windows. You download it, you install it, you get their licensing. It probably takes a while because their licensing is rather complex, right? And so what you would do, and let's see if always wonder. So, you go here and they have a website that will let you grab and download. Usually they should have a download link or a way to find that download link on their from the App Store. But this is kind of an old school way of getting an app. That they tend to be very capable products, you know, master cam for cam, or, you know, this is a great mechanism motion study. This has a keyframe animator and, you know, motion studies too. So, you know, it'll do some really cool stuff. But those are the yellow ones. So just the thing about our API is it's a REST API, right? It's a cloud-based methodology. Don't even ask me to describe exactly what the technical description of it, but it is it's a way cloud-based apps communicate. And that also means, though, by definition, even a desktop app can use the REST API. So it really doesn't matter what platform you're on. You can use an API and you can talk to Onshape. Now, so the yellow ones will always be a download and an install, generally speaking. The two blue ones are cloud-based products. And the only difference between them is one will run inside Onshape and one is more, in fact, if we were to look at SimScale, you know, you go to the SimScale product, and the way this works is from their site. Oh, I'll do that over here.
Well, it runs in their own browser, right?
Yeah, that's all I wanted to show. But this has my password manager in it. That's why I wanted to use this. So when I log into SimScale here, when I want to talk to Onshape, you know, this is all my stuff that I've done. It's a big mess. But if I create a new project and, you know, I'm on SimScale's look and feel, they've decided, you know, all the information that they want you to have. And this is for analysis, whether it's some structural analysis. I think they do modal, and then they do CFD. But this is a long way for me to get here. So what they basically have is a button, and this button will ask me to log in if my cookie's not stored. But now from their application, they're browsing through all my documents. They just cached all the documents, and then I can go through and find the particular document. You know, they basically are giving a view into Onshape to bring in the data that I might be interested in bringing into their application. So that's how a connected cloud app will work, right? It will go from their application and, oh, I picked the wrong thing. It will go from their application into Onshape, so it pulls it in. Now, the third type, or the third type are the integrated cloud apps. And those are the, you know, another way you can do it is you can do it by app type, and that will sort by the types of apps. And these are all apps that are even a little bit more integrated, if you will, than what I just showed. And so if we were to go to Visual Cam as an example, right? It's a cam app. You know, right now I'm not logged in, so I can't subscribe. You know, one of the things about the App Store is that it knows who you are. So and I'm using this so it doesn't know who I am specifically. That's why I can't purchase or do anything. As soon as I sign in using my Onshape credentials, it will let me, you know, subscribe to them. It'll know, in fact, it will know everything that I've purchased by going to the My Apps thing. You know, My Apps will show, these are all the applications that I've subscribed to or purchased. It's really the same thing. It's just a purchase is a subscription that costs money, essentially. Okay. So when you subscribe to one of these, you know, in like as an example, I was looking at, what was I looking at? Sorry, I'm all over. I've subscribed to the free plan. So you can see by color coding, you know, I've purchased this. I have a free plan for Reality Server. So inside Onshape, you know, you'll see that, you know, this is Onshape, but you see that I have different types of tabs that I can create. I can create anything, you know, I can create parts, assemblies, and drawings. But up here, I can also have any of the integrated cloud apps will also create a tab in my document. And it's just another way for you to, you know, work with your Onshape data. So let's do Visual Cam. And so what Visual Cam does is it creates a tab down here, and now it's logging in, and we're actually going to their website, and their website is doing a little handshaking, and just check my credentials. And then the next thing it's going to do is it's now going to look at this document, and it's going to say, okay, based on this document that you're in, these are all the possible parts that you might want to, machine in this product. And if I pick one of these, or I could have picked multiple, now it's bringing the data in. And then I would do your typical CAM operations, set the stock size, pick a tool, and machine it. And same thing for all of these apps. If I go to this tab here, I've actually got this machined already, just to kind of give you a feel for, at least I think I do. Yeah. So this is Visual Cam, and rather than me, go through all the steps, it's not hard to do, but I thought, let's just cut to the chase and see what we're doing here. You're going to create a toolpath, okay? And I used a roughing pattern, and I can even go and do a little post-processing on this and see what it looks like. But it's really slick, right? The idea, I'm gonna say the wrong thing. Oh, simulate, sorry. That was actually downloading the G code. So this is just gonna give you a nice idea of, based on that particular path or that roughing pass, how much you can see the actual material removal and simulation. And you can turn off tool paths and some other visualization things. So, very, very cool. And with the integrated cloud apps, one of the advantages is that literally wherever you go, if I go to another computer and log in, I have access to all this stuff. They follow you, right? There's no install. These things have zero. Same with all the cloud apps, but they come with you, and it's really kind of a cool thing because it just, you start thinking about this idea of having to download, install, and licensing products. It's just kind of old school, really, and that's probably the biggest thing here. Some of I can walk you through some of the apps that I think are, there's definitely apps that are more professional and apps that are probably more for hobbyists. I would kind of break them up into those two categories. And the hobbyist products are typically free, and the professional tools cost money. That's really the difference. And they do different things. This is SimSolid, which is really an awesome product because it's probably my favorite, because all I did is I brought this assembly in with no prepping, nothing. I did it while while John was talking. Actually, I just decided, why not bring it in? So I brought it in. I hit 2 buttons, and I was able to get the post-processing. I was able to get the results instantly. I mean, it is almost automatic analysis. Is really what's cool. And you can think about, this is not a complex assembly, but I never had to mesh. I never had to worry about gaps. I never had to worry about parts that are overlapping, all this. It really, to some extent anyway, it really streamlines the workflow for analysis. And I think that's one of its strengths anyway. If you look at Reality Server, it's a great visualization tool. When you take this thing in and you say, I want to, create some photorealistic rendering of that water tester. And this one, maybe this is my favorite app. I don't know. I can't make up my mind. But, this one is fun. Rendering's always fun, right? So this is what it looks like directly from Onshape, right? I didn't do a single thing to it. It just brings it in. And this is already a ray trace model, interactive ray trace model. Again, there's nothing happening local. Right? By the way, I can go and, SimSolid can be cranking away on analysis right now, and Visual Cam can be doing its tool paths, and Reality Server can be, doing rendering. And I can be on a $200 Chromebook doing all this, right? That's, again, your hardware absolutely doesn't make that much of a difference anyway. And this product looks good. I mean, actually, I kind of like this look, right? It's like real, true, accurate shadows. It's, it's called global illumination, but, there's a couple tricks to just really add a few things to it very quickly. Put a ground shadow on there. And by the way, this product works by, when you move it around, like if I go over here and spin it, it kind of does a reset, and then it will, you'll see it catch up in a second. And then it refines itself. As you let it go, it'll start to, show the results looking better and better as time goes on, right? So, and then really what you want to do is you want to find your materials and just drag some materials on. So, Paul, the owner of Reality Server, always tells me you should be using search, but since I can't spell, it's hard. So I typically browse to the materials, and we're going to work on him. There's a lot of little things that we're going to do to simplify. Why am I getting that here? Oh, I've got a text in there. Search is in my way. So what you do is if you find that, if you go down here and just kind of navigate to, I won't call this the most intuitive way to find them, but once you find them, okay, there's a lot here. There's a lot of materials. And let's just say I want the metals. We all want metals, right? You can take a metal, gunmetal, and just start dragging and dropping it on the part, right? So I want that one there. I want to turn that one over there. What else I want to do? There's no shortcut here. You got to put your materials on, and I'm just randomly dragging some stuff. Let's put some transparent stuff on there. Let's do some plastic transparent materials. So we'll make this one transparent. And sorry, I'm just doing so much random stuff here, but you can start making this thing look great in a very short amount of time. But it's putting materials on the part. And then the last thing that you would do if you want to is you can switch to this environments down here. And the environments, again, it's always a trade-off of how much graphics you want to see. You can drag and drop different environments, and let me zoom this out a little bit, and you'll see the effect here as I make this a little smaller. Okay, and then this is changing the entire lighting system. And as I drag that on, you can see a little bit of shadows on here, and there's you could actually spend too much time here playing with it, but you can get a great looking model fast is what I would say is the benefit. And there's a lot of projects working on here, and I can tell you that we're going to be doing a lot of stuff to this product soon. So this is just the starting point of where it's going. So I didn't really have anything formal other than just kind of really randomly showing you stuff. I don't know. You guys tell me. Do you have any questions or anything anything? I'm an open book. What would you like to know?
That is so cool. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. I will say this. Stay tuned, because this is a really hard topic for me to talk about right now, because what's here in the App Store is going to be radically different in a few months even. There's just a lot happening, and I can't tell you more than that, but it's been relatively static for a reason for a couple of years. I haven't tried to bring a lot of new partners on. I've tried to make the partners that are there successful and try to get them to be a little bit more professional, but we're about to have a huge influx of technical publications, advanced surfacing. What else? There's a lot. I shouldn't go. There's going to be a ton of stuff, right? And anyway, so I would just keep going back to it and check it out. And we're going to have some better tools for letting people know when things have changed, right? One of the things that's hard to do with the App Store is to know when there's something new, right? We don't have a good notification. You can certainly sort by date, right? So if you go in here and do sort by date, that's going to show you. No, that's my view. Sorry. Now you're back to all my garbage. If you sort by date, that's one way at least to see what the newest things are. Like just in the last couple of days, an ERP product. This is a product that will link to any ERP system with Onshape. So that's something that just popped up. But anyway, and there's a lot missing. Wouldn't be good. Tolerance analysis, probably some more CFD we need. So I'd love to know, when you find something, if you ever think there should be something in here, generally speaking, what I do is I reach out to different companies, and I probably talked to 500 software companies over the last 5 years, and I always try to convince them this is the way to go, right? And that they should be building apps for us, and some do and some don't, right? Some are stuck in SolidWorks or some other product, and they don't know how to build cloud apps. Bill mentioned it, that the people that know how to build cloud they're not as common as the tools they used 20 years ago, right? It is kind of new technology and new development methodologies, and there's a lot of similarities, but it is new.
It's different.
Joe, I have a question, Joe.
Yes.
This is Jacques from LA.
Hey.
Do you think there'll be a topology optimization app at some point?
Well, I think that I know there will be. Now, there's already one you can work with. It's not in the App Store. And by the way, some apps, the apps do not have to be in the App Store in order to work with Onshape. I would go look at Parameters. If I probably didn't spell that right, did I? Hopefully, let's see if Google helped me out.
So I showed something I did on Parameters and mentioned them earlier. They're great.
Oh, you did, yeah. So okay, so look, this exists today, right? And this should be in the App Store, but look, it's no secret. You won't even have to go to the App Store for topology optimization. You know, PTC owns. They acquired Frustrum.
Yeah. So I was waiting for something to happen from that.
It's going to take a while, right? But I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the outcome of that. So I think that I'm not telling anything that hasn't been said in public, but you should expect Frustrum's capabilities to be part of Onshape, and I mean really part of Onshape.
That's great to hear. Yeah, that was my second question.
But patience. We really don't talk about futures. I just said something no one else would want me to say. I think that it's going to take some time. So don't, if you need something today, this is a great solution today.
Are you talking to a company called N Topology?
Yeah, no, I know them well. I think it's going to be tough. I mean, listen, if I had an app store, if we didn't have Frustrum, yes, but the fact that we're going to probably, we do, PTC has a competitor to N Topology. They have a competitor, it's competitor to Parameter. So fortunately, that makes partnering very difficult. So I mean, not that they won't work with us still, but N Topology and the biggest limitation of N Topology is that it's not cloud-based. The reason why I like Parameter is this is a cloud-based tool. I really like it, but Parameter or N Topology is, download their, Windows-based product and run it that way. And I've kind of, our users, I will say something, and I'll stop, is that something that really surprised me is when we launched the App Store, I didn't think it would really matter if partner applications were, desktop applications or, because, Esprit is a great cam app, right? And Mastercam, I think is, I hit the wrong one. Mastercam is here, and it's a great app. But you guys have voted with your wallets and with your clicks and everything, and
no more desktop.
No one is the Onshape user base is just not even clicking on these links for desktop apps. So the market for us is the world's changed. I mean, the world has changed. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
You'll like Frustrum. It is.
Yeah, actually,
really good.
I used it. I used it because it was free, and it was like kind of beta, versions. And then they stopped offering that. And
because they got acquired,
Because they got acquired, So I've been waiting for, Frustum to be back.
Well, go look at Creo. Creo 7 just released they just released Creo 7 like a month ago or something, and you'll notice it was all about Frustrum, right? There was generative design built into it. I think you could look at that and say, what would it look like in Onshape? And that's not a bad vision of what it's going to be.
Absolutely. Okay, looking forward to it then. Thanks.
Well, that rounds things up. It's 7 o'clock.
Oh, on the dot. Look at that.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, John.
Yep,
Hey guys, thanks guys,
Bye.
Kevin, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.